SLT Mobitel Home Broadband Smuggling non-stop ගමනකට data බෝවන්. SLT Mobitel Home Broadband Smuggling non-stop ගමනකට data බෝවන්.
දසන කාන්ති චූර්ණය සහිත ලීවර් ආයුෂ් දන්තාලේපය දත්වල ඇති ප්‍රශ්න 10ක් වළකයි.
Collective vision. Sri Lanka looks forward to the cooperation and support of the international community as the island seeks to implement reforms to build back better, Foreign Minister Ali Sabri tells the United Nations General Assembly. Free trade. China and Sri Lanka agreed to speed up negotiation process for a free trade pact. Undue leverage. Sri Lanka asks a US judge to throw out a lawsuit over debt default, claiming that the case is an attempt to gain leverage over a nation in crisis and jump ahead of other foreign creditors. Official visits. President Ranil Wickremesinghe to preside over meeting of the governors of Asian Development Bank in the Philippines after attending the state funeral of late Japanese Premier Shinzo Abe together with other world leaders. All this and much more coming up tonight, this Sunday, the 25th of September, 2022.
Vim Deera milliliter CA Smart Pack එක රුපියල් 85ට දැන් වෙළඳ පොලේ.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
And a warm welcome. Joining you tonight on First at 9, I'm Indi Mariamuatta. And in your top story, Minister of Foreign Affairs Ali Sabri says Sri Lanka is provided with an opportunity for implementing political, social and economic reforms given the present challenges faced by the country, both internationally and at home. He also called for the international community's cooperation and support as the country embarks on these reforms. Addressing the United Nations General Assembly during the early hours of the day, the Sri Lankan Foreign Minister said government is extremely sensitive to the socio-economic hardships faced by the people and have put measures in place to protect the vulnerable segments of society. The minister added that Sri Lanka will exploit the crisis that is at hand, build back stronger, leaving no one behind, and rise to new horizons of freedom and progress.
The external and internal challenges we face provide an opportunity for implementing political, social, and economic reform that will lead to recovery and prosperity for our people. Sri Lanka believes that this is the moment to realize our collective vision for the future, an opportunity to build a more just, sustainable, and prosperous future for all Sri Lankans, to build back better. We look forward to the cooperation and support of the international community, including the United Nations, as we embark on this journey. Following prolonged social unrest and protests in the country, President Ranil Wickremesinghe, in his maiden speech in Parliament last month, stated, I quote, "I will implement social and political reforms requested by the nation," unquote. These measures include a review of the present procedures, the strengthening of the institutional framework of democratic governance, and adoption of urgent measures to restore long-term economic stability. We have understood that this will only be possible if we engage in a strict adherence to fiscal discipline and far-reaching economic and institutional reforms. We are committed to that process. It is envisaged that through the proposed legislative and constitutional amendment, democratic governance will be reinforced with independent oversight institutions as well as with enhanced public scrutiny. Legal and administrative frameworks are being strengthened to ensure transparency, integrity, accountability, and inclusivity in providing access to justice. A greater participation of women and youth will be ensured in this process. The government is extremely sensitive to the socio-economic hardship faced by our people. We are pleased to have reached a staff-level understanding with the IMF. We have put in place measures to protect the vulnerable segment of society and will endeavor to ensure that these economic reforms will have a minimum impact on their lives. Our institutions and society have demonstrated remarkable resilience in the face of very difficult circumstances. We unconditionally recognize the fact that one has the fundamental right to freedom of expression, which we all treat as sacrosanct. However, we also be appreciated that this freedom must be within the constitutional order and must be exercised having regard to one's fundamental duty to express oneself within the confines of the law. Sri Lanka has pledged to meet the targets of Paris Agreement, and our updated national determined contribution submitted to the UNFCCC last year with the aim of reducing emissions to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. As an island nation, we are acutely concerned about and sensitive to the impact of pollution and climate change on the oceans. We are committed to the sustainable use of the ocean and its resources in consonance with SDG 14. Sri Lanka supports sustainable transformation of agriculture to a modernized sector and encourages enhanced food production to ensure food security. Sri Lanka has initiated National Food Security Program with the dual objective of ensuring that no citizen should suffer for the want of food and no child should be a victim of malnutrition. Despite severe challenges, we will endeavor to maintain the significant progress we have made towards achieving 2030 Agenda on Sustainable Development. We recognize that investment in human capital is an indispensable essential for the future of our country. It is no surprise Sri Lanka is ranked in the high human development category, occupying rank 73 out of 191 countries globally and is the highest in the region. We have a charter and a formidable body of international law, inclusive of our supreme law, the Constitution of the Republic, and other local statutes. We are acutely conscious of the fact that notwithstanding all these sophistications, multi-pronged challenges remain. The government of Sri Lanka is committed to overcome these challenges. It is to that commitment that Sri Lanka pledges today, in the sincere hope that we will exploit the crisis that is at hand, build back better, leaving no one behind, and rise to new horizons of freedom and progress.
Now, China and Sri Lanka have agreed to speed up the negotiation process for a free trade agreement with plans to boost trade and investment. During a meeting between the Sri Lankan Foreign Minister Ali Sabri and his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi, the question of China's debt was also discussed. The Chinese embassy in Colombo said China and Sri Lanka have agreed to speed up the negotiation process on a free trade agreement in order to reach early conclusion. This agreement has been reached during the meeting between Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi and Sri Lanka's Minister of Foreign Affairs Ali Sabri on the sidelines of the ongoing UN General Assembly in New York. During the meeting, both sides have agreed to jointly promote cooperation for China's Belt and Road Initiative, as well as to boost Sri Lanka's economic recovery by leveraging the Hambantota Port, Colombo Port City and other flagship Chinese projects. Meanwhile, taking up concerns related to Chinese debt trap, the Sri Lankan Foreign Minister told his Chinese counterpart that Sri Lanka considers it an utterly groundless rumor and noted that China is an important development partner of Sri Lanka. Sabri also said Sri Lanka welcomes investments from all countries, including China, and will ensure the security and reasonable return on investments. The Chinese Foreign Minister went on to say that the narrative of debt trap created and spread by certain countries is essentially a trap of underdevelopment for developing countries. The Chinese Foreign Minister has also expressed confidence that China and Sri Lanka will stand firmly together on issues of sovereignty, independence and national dignity. President Ranil Wickremesinghe will leave for Japan during the early hours of tomorrow and is expected to meet Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida during his visit. The president will also attend the state funeral of former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe on the 27th of September, together with heads of government and other dignitaries. After concluding his visit to Japan, President Wickremesinghe is scheduled to leave for the Philippines, where he will hold discussions with the Philippines President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and the President of the Asian Development Bank.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe will leave for Japan on a 3-day official visit tomorrow, accompanied by Chief of Staff Sagala Ratnayaka and Director of International Affairs at the President's Office, Dinok Columbage. During the visit, he is scheduled to participate in the funeral ceremony of former Prime Minister of Japan Shinzo Abe, who was considered a great friend of Sri Lanka. He was assassinated on the 8th of July. It is reported that about 700 guests from 217 countries, including the Sri Lankan president, will participate in the funeral ceremony. The president is also scheduled to hold talks with Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and several other high-ranking officials during his stay in Japan. This will be President Wickremesinghe's second official visit after assuming duties as the 8th executive president of the country. His visit also comes when Japan pledged support to Sri Lanka on the debt restructuring negotiation process in order to reach a final agreement with the IMF. Japan also said they intend to play a constructive role with other creditor nations, including China and India. After concluding his visit in Japan, President Wickremesinghe is scheduled to leave for the Philippines to preside over the meeting of the governors of the Asian Development Bank on 29th of September. He is expected to have discussions with the President of the Asian Development Bank, Masatsugu Asakawa. During his visit to the Philippines, President Wickremesinghe will also hold talks with President of Philippines Ferdinand Marcos Jr. According to the President's media division, the President is scheduled to return to the island upon completion of his official tour on the 30th of September.
Sri Lanka has asked a US judge to throw out a lawsuit over the debt default, saying the case brought by one bank is an apparent attempt to gain leverage over a nation in crisis and jump ahead of other foreign creditors. Hamilton Reserve Bank Limited, which says it holds more than $250 million of Sri Lanka's dollar bonds that was due in July, filed the lawsuit that month seeking full payment of principal and interest. The bank says it holds more than 25% of the bonds, which would likely enable it to block an undesired modification to the notes. Sri Lanka fell into default in May after the expiry of a 30-day grace period for missed interest payments on 2 of sovereign bonds. This was Sri Lanka's first sovereign debt default since independence. United States Permanent Representative to the UN Food and Agriculture Agencies in Rome, Ambassador Cindy McCain, arrived in Sri Lanka this evening on a 4-day official visit. Ambassador McCain will remain in Sri Lanka until the 28th to highlight US food assistance programs in Sri Lanka and reinforce the US commitment and partnership with the island. In addition to meetings with senior government officials and organizations in Colombo, Ambassador McCain will join the US envoy in Sri Lanka, Julie Chang, to travel to the central province to visit schools, agricultural research facilities and community organizations and meet with recipients and implementers of relief provided through US government-funded humanitarian assistance programs.
අයිනෝ රයිනෝ පුතා හැබැයි යා ගෙදර නිදියන්නෙම අමුතු තැනක.
කාලගුණය කොහොම වුණත් රයිනෝ නං වහලට සේෆ් තමයි මුළු ගෙදරම. Rhino cement roofing sheets. Then you know Rhino. I know.
Big 3.
Uber Eats මගින් ඉදිරිපත් කරන ආදරයෙන් අවශ්‍යතා ඇතියට අත්‍යවශ්‍ය භාණ්ඩ පරිත්‍යාග කිරීමට වේදිකාවක්.
Tenders to procure coal for the Lakvijaya power plant in Norochole after the coal tender that was awarded in August was cancelled. According to General Manager of the Lakvijaya Coal Company, Namal Hevage, the company will publish a new international open competitive tender that will allow any suitable supplier that has the ability to provide coal on a long-term credit basis. Last month, Sri Lanka awarded a 4.5 million metric ton coal tender to Dubai-based Black Sands Trading Company to supply coal to Sri Lanka on a 2-year term. However, Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Vijayasekara said the tender was awarded to the lowest bid received for the procurement of coal. However, a fundamental rights petition was filed in the Supreme Court by Dr. Omalpe Sobitathera requesting a verdict that the fundamental human rights of the people have been violated by offering the tender for the purchase of coal. The petitioner claimed that the government will incur a loss of over 500 million US dollars due to the awarding of this tender to the company in question, which is not a registered coal supplier. Due to legal proceedings, the subject minister revealed that the company to which the tender was awarded has shown reluctance to supply coal to Sri Lanka. In such backdrop, the Public Utilities Commission warned that inability to procure coal will risk the increase of ongoing power cuts up to 12 hours a day. On Friday, the minister announced that the supplier had pulled out after communicating its inability to fulfill the tender, while citing concerns about the impact on legal cases filed and payments guarantee risk. That has dragged Sri Lanka into a situation where the country should immediately procure coal in the next few days to operate the Norotchole power plant that contributes 900 megawatts to the national grid. Thereby, Lanka Coal Company has decided to call an immediate tender to procure coal for the Lakvijaya power plant in Norotchole.
ඒ අනුව ලබන සතියේ අඟහරුවාදා දින සියලු කටයුතු සූදානම් කරගෙන යනවා ශනික ටෙන්ඩරයක් වහම කැඳවන්නට. මේ ටෙන්ඩර් ක්‍රමවේදයත් සම්පූර්ණ කඩාකප්පල්කාරී වුණොත් එහෙම ඊට පස්සේ අපිට සිද්ධ වෙනවා කවුරු හරි ගෙනත් දෙන ඕන මිලකට බඩු ගන්න. ජාත්‍යන්තරව ඉන්න ඕනම සැපීම්කරුවෙකුට සහභාගී වෙන්න පුළුවන්. විවෘත ජාත්‍යන්තර ටෙන්ඩරයක් කැඳවන්න අවසර දීලා තියෙනවා. මොකද දැන් ගල්ලංගරු තොග දැන්ට පවතින්නේ ඔක්තෝබර් 20 වෙනිදා වෙනකම් පමණයි.
16 school children have been taken into police custody in connection with forest fire at the Alla Rock Forest Reserve. AdaDerana reporters said that the fire left about 15 acres of land in Alla Forest Reserve destroyed. Officials of the Disaster Management Centre office in Alla and the Sri Lanka Army, police and workers of the Pradesh Sabha helped contain the fire that had spread to a 10-acre area of the forest reserve. They say that they believe the fire had spread after the group of schoolboys who went on a trip had set up a bonfire in the forest reserve. The students who were arrested on suspicion over the incident are reported to be residents of Badulla, Haliala and Namanukula areas. A passenger who had attempted to smuggle undeclared used mobile phones, laptops, gold biscuits and gold jewellery worth over 22 million rupees into Sri Lanka was arrested at the Bandaranaike International Airport in Katunayake. The passenger, a 23-year-old Buddhist monk, had reportedly arrived in the country on board a flight from Dubai via Oman. BIA customs officials had found the items concealed inside his luggage. The monk from Tissamaharama was later released upon being fined and the smuggled items confiscated from him. Taking you to international business news, the President of the United Arab Emirates has signed an agreement with the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz that covers accelerating energy security and industrial growth. Abu Dhabi National Oil Company signed an agreement to supply liquefied natural gas to German utility RWE, which is a multinational energy company. Abu Dhabi National Oil Company will deliver the first shipment in late 2022 for use in the trial operation of a floating natural gas terminal in Germany. Germany, until recently heavily dependent on Russia for gas, has been seeking to diversify its energy supply since Russia invaded Ukraine in February. Now the pound fell to a fresh 37-year low against the dollar as financial markets reacted to the biggest tax-cutting moves in 50 years. UK stocks also dropped after Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng outlined a series of tax cuts and economic measures in a massive shake-up of the country's finances. The pound fell more than 3% against the dollar, dropping below $1.09. The sterling has fallen recently over worries about the economy and partly due to a stronger US dollar. The pound also fell more than 1% against the euro on Friday, dropping to a €1.12. Well, that wraps up tonight's edition of First at 9. Thank you for watching. Good night.